Hey, you guys. Okay, we're going to keep reading, and today's story is called The Wooden Horse. If you sailed east from Greece, you came to the land of the Trojans, whose capital city, Troy, was a wonder to behold. Ringed by a mighty stone wall with massive gates, the Greeks and the Trojans were enemies. They fought a bitter war which lasted 10 years. The Greeks started it because they thought they had been wronged by the Trojans. You can judge whether they were right or not when you hear the tale of how their quarrel began. In the days when the Greeks and Trojans were still friends, Zeus, king of the gods, held a great wedding feast to celebrate the marriage of the sea nymph Thetis and a mortal prince. He invited all the gods, that is, except one. His guest list did not include Eris, the goddess of strife. She creates trouble wherever she goes, he said, but Eris came without being asked. Without a word, she tossed a golden apple into the midst of the guests and disappeared. Somebody picked up the apple and read aloud the words upon it: to the fairest. It is meant for me. I am the fairest, said three voices at once. The three most beautiful goddesses, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, each tried to seize the apple, claiming it was hers. A terrible argument began that threatened to ruin the feast. Zeus called for silence and announced he would appoint an umpire to choose between the goddesses. It shall be someone from far away who does not know any of you, he said. Zeus chose a young man called Paris to be judge. He was a Trojan, son of King Priam of Troy. Hermes, carrying the apple, journeyed with the three goddesses over the sea to Troy and presented them to the shy young prince. He was so overcome by their beauty and splendor that he was unable to choose, so each goddess offered him a bribe. Hera promised him power. If he chose her, he would rule over vast kingdoms and be the richest man alive. Athena offered him victory in every battle and told him she would make him the wisest man in the world. Then it was Aphrodite's turn. Such a handsome man as you, she declared, deserves the love of the most beautiful woman in the world. And if you choose me, I shall make sure that you have it. Who is this woman? Asked Paris eagerly. She is Helen, wife of Menelaus, king of Sparta in Greece. But never mind that, I will arrange for her to fall in love with you. Hearing this, Paris unhesitatingly handed the apple to Aphrodite. Hera and Athena were enraged at being rejected, but Aphrodite told Paris not to fear them while she was on his side. Under her protection, he set sail for Greece to claim the reward that she had promised him. Menelaus knew nothing of this and welcomed Paris as an honored visitor from overseas. After some days, the king had to make a journey and told his wife to entertain their Trojan guest while he was away. Helen was very happy to do this, for under the spell of Aphrodite, she had fallen deeply in love with Paris the moment she saw him. Paris easily persuaded her to run away with him. They fled in Paris's ship, and a favorable wind blew them swiftly across the sea to Troy. When the Greeks returned and they learned that a Trojan had betrayed the trust of the king of Sparta and stolen his wife, they were furiously angry and demanded her return. But the Trojans were spellbound by the beauty of Helen and would not give her up. Then the mightiest Greek kings and warriors, with all the armed followers they could raise, sailed in a huge fleet to attack the city of Troy and bring back Helen. Troy stood in a wide plain beside the sea. The Greeks beached their boats on the shore and sprang out fully armed to meet the Trojan force awaiting them. There was a savage battle in which the Trojans were forced to retreat within the city walls and bar its massive gate. The triumphant Greeks set up camp along the shore, expecting an easy victory the next day. How wrong they were. For 9 long years, they besieged the city. For 9 years, the Trojans, safe within their walls, would not surrender. Many blood battles were fought on the open plain, but the Trojans could not drive the Greeks away, and the Greeks could not capture the city. By the 10th year, the Greek leaders were quarreling among themselves, and their soldiers were saying openly that they would no longer fight for the sake of a woman. They wanted to go home. At this point, the cleverest and most cunning of the Greeks, Odysseus, king of Ithaca, came up with a surprising plan. Be guided by me, he said, and I will show you how the city can be captured. The other leaders listened and nodded. It's worth a try, they said. When the Trojan watchmen on the city walls looked out at dawn the next day, they could not believe their eyes. There were no Greek tents on the plain and no Greek ships along the shore. The unbelievable must have happened. The Greeks had given up last and sailed off in the night. The news spread swiftly through the city, and people streamed out of the gates to see for themselves. On the shore where the tents had been, they found the most amazing object, a gigantic horse made of wood. Its legs were as tall as tree trunks. Its head was beyond the reach of the tallest man. The Greeks must have left it there, but why? What was the meaning of such a thing? Some said it was an offering to Athena to thank her for favors shown to the Greeks during the war. Let's take it over, someone else suggested. Let's win Athena to our side by bringing it into the city and making our own offerings to it. Fool, cried another voice. You are all fools and idiots. This was from Laocoon, a priest of Poseidon who had come with his 2 sons to beg the sea god to help Troy. Remember the cunning of the Greeks. It's when they leave you presents that you should fear them most. We must destroy this horse. And with that, he hurled his spear at its wooden flank, which rang with a hollow sound. At that moment, a man was seen dodging behind some rocks, apparently trying to hide. Soldiers dragged him out and questioned him. Yes, he was a Greek, and yes, the Greeks had given up the siege. The horse was an offering to Athena to ensure a safe voyage home. He, being a criminal already condemned to death, was to have been sacrificed to it, but he had managed to escape and hide. But why build a horse so big, he was asked. To stop it passing through Troy's gate, the man answered. Our soothsayer warned that if it entered Troy, the city would enjoy the protection of the gods forever. The people cheered at this, but the next minute they were motionless with fright as, with 2 great seething and bubbling of the sea, 2 serpents came from the waves and wound themselves around Laocoon's son. Their horrified father rushed to find them and was immediately entrapped as well. All 3 were squeezed to death. To the Trojans, this was a sure sign that a powerful god was angered by Laocoon's attitude about the horse. Their minds made up, they took down the stone lintel of the great gate to drag the horse inside and followed it in procession to the main square, where they garlanded it with flowers and danced and drank wine in its honor. When the happy Trojans finally slept, a trap door in the belly of the horse dropped open, and 50 armed Greeks dropped to the ground. Some raced to the gate, overcame the guards, and let in the Greek army, which under cover of darkness had sailed back from its hiding place beyond a headland. Others set fire to the town. The unarmed Trojans were killed, and their women were taken as slaves. So the 10-year war was brought to an end in one night by a trick. Troy was utterly destroyed. Paris was killed, and Helen returned to Menelaus and sailed with him to Greece. Okay, I'm going to show you the pictures in the book. So here is the, sorry, we have to wait for it to focus. There we go. So this is the original battle after they get to Troy. I guess here, this is Helen, and that is Paris, and they're sailing. And here is a picture of the Trojan horse. See how big it is? It's called the Trojan horse. And those are the walls of the city. Okay, so I hope you understood that, or enjoyed that story. And one of the allusions that we get from it is that there's actually a couple. There's one that's beware of Greeks bearing gifts, and that alludes to the wooden horse being a trap, not actually a gift. And the other one is a face that launched 1,000 ships. And that refers to Helen because she was the most beautiful woman in all the land. And because of her face being so beautiful, it launched 1,000 ships to go and get her, and then those that came to get her from Paris after he stole her away from Menelaus. Okay, hope you enjoyed this story, and I will see you guys later.